Good morning, hope you're doing well today. This video was filmed at 7:21 AM on the 17th of October 2019, and everything I'm saying was true at the time of recording. For the last 24 hours, everything's been moving so quickly that making a video hasn't really been possible. The UK and EU have been furiously negotiating, trying to get a deal ready for today, and that's exactly what we're going to be discussing in this morning's video. This video is made possible thanks to your support. The only reason why I'm able to spend so much time doing this, use this studio and have a whole team at my disposal is because of your support. So thank you so much for that. If you do want to lend us a hand, then you can pick up some items from our merch store, whether that be badges from our website or t-shirts, hoodies and all that kind of stuff from our Teespring store. There's links to both in the description. Thank you so much for your continued support. So, why is today such an important day? Why did I need to make this emergency video? Well, today is day one of the EU summit. And at the summit, EU leaders were hoping to see the latest legal text which laid out the UK and EU's New Deal. That's why UK and EU negotiators have been working day and night this week to try and get a deal done. They wanted to have it ready to present to EU leaders today in order to get their approval at the summit. We're getting close to the deadline now, and this is the last summit before Halloween, so this was always going to be a big day. But there are talks of the EU holding another summit even closer to the deadline if it's necessary to get a deal hammered out. Despite the potential of a fallback summit, today is still incredibly important, and that's because of another deadline. The deadline in the Benn Act. You might remember the Benn Act, the law that MPs passed in September, which required the Prime Minister to ask for an extension from the EU if he wasn't able to get a deal done. It was put in place in order to prevent him from just letting the UK leave without a deal automatically on the 31st of October. The problem for the Prime Minister is that the deadline set out in the Benn Act is this Saturday, which means that if he doesn't have a deal by then, he's going to have to ask for an extension, which runs completely counter to his main policy of getting the UK out of the EU by the 31st of October, no ifs or buts. So that's why today was such an important day for the Prime Minister. He needed to get a deal ready to present to EU leaders at the summit in order to get it finally approved by MPs on Saturday in the House of Commons. And yesterday, things were looking positive for Johnson. Good noises were coming out of both sides of negotiations, and a deal was looking likely. In fact, the EU said that the deal was pretty much complete from their side, and the only thing that needed to be confirmed was some issues on the UK side of negotiations. And that issue on the British side was the Democratic Unionist Party. You might remember the DUP as the Northern Irish party who supported the Conservatives into government via the supply and confidence relationship. And the DUP are really important here, because when you run the maths, the only way for Johnson to get a deal through Parliament is with their support. And if you want to find out more about the parliamentary arithmetic, you can check out the video on that in the description. Essentially though, he needs the DUP on side if his deal is ever going to get through Parliament. So through the night, the Conservatives and DUP were in talks to try and persuade the DUP to back the deal. And without their support, there was nothing to present to EU leaders at the summit. If the deal's not going to make it through Parliament, then what's the point in presenting it at all? It no longer even matters what EU leaders think of it. The hope that the DUP would support the deal came crashing down this morning at 6:46 AM when the DUP published a letter. The letter states that as things stand, we could not support what's being suggested on customs and consent issues, and while they say that they will continue to work with the government, this help will likely be too late, meaning that Johnson will still be required to ask for an extension on Saturday. That's because without this legal text to present to EU leaders, it looks unlikely that Johnson will have a deal which MPs can vote on Saturday. And that means he'll miss the deadline set in the Benn Act, which then means that the Act will force him to ask for an extension. There are three ways this could still sort itself out though. Johnson could compromise and give more ground to guarantee an agreement. The EU could capitulate to the DUP's demands in order to get a deal through the UK's Parliament, but it doesn't look likely that the EU could possibly do this while continuing to protect the single market. Or the DUP could decide that this deal is better than no deal and change their mind. There was at one point talk that Johnson would try and get around the Act, or just directly break the law. But that was quashed yesterday when Stephen Barclay, the Brexit secretary, said that the government would abide by the text. That doesn't mean that Johnson will be happy about asking for an extension, or that he'll do it without protest, but it does suggest that he won't break the law in trying to get around the Benn Act. And that's essentially all we know at the moment. Things are expected to change rapidly over the next few days and hours. And we will of course keep you updated on this as it plays out and as we get more reactions from leaders around the world. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to be kept up to date. You can also hit the bell icon if you want to be notified every time we release a video. And if you want more from us, you can find TLDR across all social networks simply by searching for TLDR News. And if you want your name featured at the end of the videos, just like these people, then you can sign up to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.